Hey guys, welcome back to Unveiling Stories. Today I've got a wild tale to share. Buckle up, because this is hands down the wildest experience in Thailand, involving a ping-pong show gone very, very wrong. Let me set the stage for you. I'd been to Thailand a couple of times when I was younger, always with my family. You know, the typical touristy stuff. Beautiful beaches, ornate temples, floating markets, the works. But for my 18th birthday, my parents gave me some money, and being the adventurous, or maybe just foolish teenager I was, I immediately bought a return ticket to Bangkok. This time though, it wasn't going to be a family-friendly trip. No sir, I was going with two of my best mates, Tom and Harvey, for what we thought would be the adventure of a lifetime. We arrived in Bangkok on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. The heat hit us like a wall as we stepped out of Suvarnabhumi Airport. But we were too excited to care. Our taxi weaved through the chaotic Bangkok traffic, and I remember thinking how different everything looked without the protective bubble of a family vacation. We checked into our hostel on Khao San Road, the backpacker's paradise. It was a far cry from the fancy hotels my parents used to book, but it had its charm. The place was alive with energy, travelers from all over the world. Music blaring from every bar, the smell of pad thai and chang beer in the air. We dumped our bags and hit the street, ready to soak it all in. The first couple of days were a blur of excitement. We were living the dream of every Western 18-year-old let loose in Bangkok. We explored the gleaming temples by day, marveling at the intricate details of the Grand Palace and Wat Pho. But it was the nights that really came alive for us. Khao San Road transformed as the sun went down. The street food vendors multiplied, selling everything from scorpions on sticks to pad thai. We drank bucket cocktails that were way too strong, danced with strangers from every corner of the globe, and felt like we were on top of the world. We met Aussies, Germans, Brits, and Americans, all united in the pursuit of a good time. It was on our third night that we first heard whispers of Pat Pong Road and its infamous ping-pong shows. We were sitting in a dingy bar, nursing our chang beers, when an older British guy at the next table leaned over. "Oi, lads," he said, his words slightly slurred. "You been to Pat Pong yet?" We shook our heads, and his eyes lit up with a mischievous glint. "Oh, you're in for a treat," he chuckled. "Things you see there. You won't believe your eyes. Just watch your wallets. Yeah." That was all it took. Our curiosity was piqued, and we knew where we'd be heading the next night. The following evening, we prepped for our big adventure. We'd spent the day recovering from our hangovers, lounging by the hostel's tiny pool, and hydrating. As the sun began to set, we started getting ready. I remember the nervous energy in our room. We were excited, but also a little apprehensive. We'd heard stories, after all. We pre-gamed in our room with a bottle of cheap Thai whiskey, building up our liquid courage. By the time we left the hostel, we were pleasantly buzzed and ready for whatever the night might bring. We flagged down a tuk-tuk, and I'll never forget the driver's knowing smile when we told him our destination. "Pat Pong? Okay, he laughed, revving up his engine. The ride was an adventure in itself, weaving through Bangkok's insane traffic, the wind in our faces, neon lights blurring as we sped by. We whooped and hollered, drunk on alcohol and the thrill of the unknown. Pat Pong Road hit us like a sensory overload. The street was a riot of colors and sounds, neon signs advertising "sexy show" and "girls, girls, girls," thumping music spilling out of every doorway, street vendors hawking counterfeit watches and DVDs. The air was thick with the smell of street food, cigarette smoke, and something else. Excitement? Danger? Maybe both. We wandered around the night market for a bit, taking it all in. Every few steps, we were approached by touts trying to lure us into their clubs. "Hey, sexy man, you want C-show?" They'd thrust flyers into our hands, promising the best girls, the wildest acts. We brushed them off, wanting to explore a bit more before committing. After about half an hour, we were approached by a young Thai man who seemed different from the others. He was well-dressed, spoke excellent English, and had an air of sophistication about him. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "I can see you're men of taste. You don't want these tourist traps. Let me show you where the real Bangkok comes alive." Maybe it was his polished manner, or maybe it was the whiskey clouding our judgment, but we found ourselves nodding along. He led us down a side alley, away from the main drag of Patpong. In retrospect, this should have been our first warning sign. We climbed a narrow staircase to a nondescript door. Our guide knocked in a particular pattern, and the door swung open. As we stepped inside, the door closed behind us with a definitive click. That's when I noticed there was no handle on the inside. Our second warning sign, blatantly ignored in our alcohol-induced haze. The club was dimly lit and hazy with cigarette smoke. A small stage dominated one end of the room, currently occupied by 3 women of varying ages. I'd like to say they were dancing, but what they were doing defied description. Let's just say that ping-pong balls were the least shocking objects being utilized in ways that human anatomy was surely not designed for. We were ushered to a table near the stage, and almost immediately, a group of scantily clad women surrounded us. They draped themselves over our shoulders, giggling and asking us to buy them drinks. We obliged, still riding high on the novelty of it all. A heavy-set Thai woman, who I assumed was the mama-san, came over to take our drink orders. We each ordered a beer, and she disappeared into the haze. The show on stage continued, each act more outrageous than the last. I remember thinking that I'd never be able to look at a bottle of Coca-Cola the same way again. Time seemed to blur in that dark, smoky room. The beers we ordered never materialized, but we hardly noticed. The women at our table kept up a steady stream of chatter, flattering us, asking us to buy them drinks. Every so often, one would leave, only to be quickly replaced by another. It was Tom who first noticed something was off. He leaned in close to me and Harvey, his eyes wide. "Guys," he whispered, "have you seen how many drinks are on our table?" I looked down and felt a jolt of alarm. Our table was crowded with half-empty glasses, at least a dozen, maybe more. Glasses that we definitely hadn't ordered or drunk from. That's when the alarm bells really started ringing. I glanced at Harvey and Tom, and I could see the same realization dawning on their faces. We were in trouble. As if on cue, the music stopped. The performers left the stage. Every eye in the place turned to us. The mama-san materialized at our table, her friendly demeanor gone, replaced by a hard, calculating look. "You pay now," she said, her voice brooking no argument. She slapped a bill on our table. I glanced at it and felt my stomach drop. The total was astronomical. Thousands of baht. For drinks we hadn't ordered, for girls we hadn't asked to join us, my mind raced, trying to convert the sum to pounds. It was more money than we had on us, possibly more than we had for our entire trip. "There must be some mistake," I stammered. "We didn't order all this." The mama-san's eyes narrowed. "No mistake," she growled. "You pay for drinks. You pay for girls. 500 baht each girl." We stood up, ready to argue our case, but that's when everything went to hell. As one, every person in the club started shouting. The cacophony was deafening, a wall of noise designed to disorient and intimidate us. I looked around wildly, searching for an escape route, but the exit was blocked by 2 burly men who definitely hadn't been there before. The women who had been so friendly earlier were now screaming in our faces, demanding payment. Harvey, always the peacemaker, reached for his wallet. "Guys, maybe we should just pay," he said, his voice shaking. But I knew if we started paying, we'd be cleaned out, and who knew if they'd even let us go after that. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear over the rush of blood in my ears. That's when I saw our chance. The door at the top of the stairs opened, and a new customer walked in, momentarily distracting the guards. In that split second, I made a decision that could have either saved us or gotten us into even deeper trouble. I grabbed the mama-san by her shoulders and shoved her aside with all my might. She stumbled, crashing into a nearby table. In the ensuing chaos, I yelled at Tom and Harvey to run. We burst through the door, nearly bowling over the new arrival. We thundered down the stairs, the shouts and curses of the club staff ringing in our ears. I half expected to feel a hand grab my shirt at any moment, to be dragged back into that smoky hell. But somehow, we made it to the street. We didn't stop running until we were back on the main road, gasping for breath, our hearts pounding. We found a tuk-tuk and practically dove into it, yelling at the driver to take us back to Khao San Road. As we sped through the Bangkok night, the adrenaline slowly began to wear off. We looked at each other, wide-eyed and shaken, barely able to believe what had just happened. Then, as the absurdity of the situation hit us, we started to laugh. It was that slightly hysterical laughter of those who've narrowly escaped disaster. Back in our hostel room, we bolted the door and finally allowed ourselves to relax. We stayed up late into the night, rehashing every detail of our misadventure, each retelling getting more dramatic than the last. The rest of our trip was decidedly tamer. We stuck to Khao San Road, content with its relatively innocent brand of debauchery. When it was time to fly home, we breathed a collective sigh of relief. Bangkok had shown us its dark side, and we had barely escaped unscathed. Looking back now, years later, I can appreciate the lesson we learned that night. We were young, naive, and thought we were invincible. Bangkok taught us otherwise. It showed us that behind the glitz and excitement of its red light districts, there lurked real danger for the unwary. Don't get me wrong, I still love Thailand. I've been back many times since, exploring its beautiful beaches, vibrant culture, and incredible food. But I've never set foot in Patpong again, and I always warn fellow travelers about the risks of those special shows. So, if you're planning a trip to Bangkok, by all means, enjoy its many wonders. Experience the bustling markets, the magnificent temples, the mouth-watering street food. But when it comes to the red light districts and ping-pong shows, take it from someone who's been there. Some experiences are better left in the realm of legend. Stay safe, stay smart, and create memories that you'll want to relive, not ones that'll give you nightmares. And if you ever find yourself in a sketchy club with no door handle on the inside, trust me, run. Run like hell, and don't look back. It might just be the best decision you ever make.